All right, well, welcome back to the MRG interview series. Today, my guest is Dave Cave. Dave, how you doing?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How's yourself?
Pretty good. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Not a problem. Looking forward to having a chat.
We were introduced together through when I was working at a film festival, and you had submitted Dystopia Street. So that's kind of how we kind of connected there on that film. You want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about that film? It's without a doubt one of my favorite short films, by the way.
I appreciate you saying that. There's not a lot of people who I've heard say that in the past because it's, as you know, kind of slightly different to your normal run-of-the-mill short film, but that was quite an intentional thing on my part.
Yeah, it's very different to me, and I think its uniqueness is what really stood out to me because it just kind of sucked me in from the beginning and held on to me. And that's the one thing with short films. It's I think people, a lot of people don't think about it, but you have to really have a certain way about it because you don't have anywhere near as much time to do what you want to do. So you need to execute.
No, you're correct, Todd. And I think it was a difficult one, because the film was never something which, I was going to present to an audience which they could kind of sit back, relax, and just munch on the popcorn with, I
Yeah.
was kind of forcing an audience to think in a way, which was in itself quite a chancy strategy to take, let's say, when you're making a short. But, I think my intention with the majority of the films I try to make is to make them kind of different on a subtextual level, so
Right.
that an audience kind of often it doesn't work because I think a lot of short film audiences are expecting to be entertained constantly, and I think film as an art is something that you can you can do more with than what often you see from a lot of filmmakers. But that's just my opinion, I suppose. I think the intention with Dystopia Street, as I say, from the beginning, was to give an audience something and kind of let them, think through it and kind of give. It's almost sounds a bit of a cop out to say let them make their own mind up as to what the film's about, but it was kind of more so to make them think about themselves and make them think deeper than just something which is easy on the eye and then you just walk away and forget about. I suppose does that make sense?
Right. No, I think it does for sure. And I know you mentioned that you maybe didn't intend for it to, meet this grand audience, but at the present time, how many festival acceptances do you have and wins and awards and all that for this?
With Dystopia Street, well,
Yeah,
ironically, it's my most successful short film. So I think we got into it was just under 150 short film festivals globally, and we ended up winning 18 awards at the end of it. So it wasn't a bad run.
I mean that's quite good. I mean, the amount of laurels that you've got for that is, especially I imagine when you don't know how people will perceive it, the fact that it obviously was, perceived very well because, that's some pretty good attention there. I think I remember back when we were first starting to talk. I know that you and the short Mr. Denton, you guys were constantly back and forth with how many acceptances you guys have had. I know they had quite a bit as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of know Ivan through the various platforms these days. Everybody kind of knows everybody in the filmmaking world, so I'm quite good friends with Ivan, and it's a fantastic film, Mr. Denton.
It is.
inevitably got in, and it doesn't surprise me, got into a hell of a lot more festivals and won a way more, shared a load of awards than my film. But I think there's reasons for that, you know. I mean, I think Ivan's film was more classical. It was more of a classical horror film.
Yeah.
Whereas mine tended to kind of divide audiences. I always like to think of it as a bit of a Marmite film. You're the kind of viewer who's going to either really like what I'm trying to do or hate it, and that's fine. That's fine, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, I think whenever, you know, and I know this as a filmmaker. I mean, I think when you make a film, you open yourself up to that every time, where some people are going to love it, some people are going to like it, some people aren't going to care about it, and some people are going to tell you that you made the biggest piece of garbage ever.
Yeah, yes, you're not wrong. But you know, the way I see all art is that, you know, if people react to it, whether that's positively or negatively, personally, I think that's a good thing, because, you know, I would hate to be the type of artist who makes something and people don't even take the time to kind of consider how they feel about it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a positive or a negative reaction, I think that's a good thing, because in a funny way, you've kind of changed that viewer's life, you know, just on a very small level, but you've made them react, you know, you've made them feel something, and I think that's the important thing for me as a filmmaker anyway, you know. That's why I always attempt to do it.
I would definitely agree with that. I think it's evoking some kind of emotion tells you that you know you did your job, because it's those things where people don't care or don't comment either way that don't really touch them in any way whatsoever.
No, yeah, definitely. But you know, at the end of the day, I think as people, we're all on different journeys in life to kind of get out of it what we can or what we feel is important to us as people, and I think that kind of trickles into whatever it is you do on a day-to-day basis, in any sense of the word, really, whether you're a filmmaker or a painter or any kind of artist. You know, I think it's something we do more so, not for an end product, but for me, it's kind of a cathartic process, you know, the actual process of being involved in a production, regardless of how people perceive it as successful or not, is the important thing. I think it's deeper, you know, something within us as artists, and you'll understand this being a filmmaker yourself, is that it's something you kind of need to do more than you want to do, and that comes from within us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. So, you know what I was thinking here is, I got a few questions that I've been throwing out to everybody, so I just want to kind of get your take on these. And then after that, I'd like to hear about, you know, maybe what you're working on now, or what you have, you know, what you're planning on, or anything you've done real recent. So let's start with, I don't necessarily want to say favorite, but is there a specific director that actually made you think that, you know, I want to be a filmmaker, that had a major influence on you becoming a filmmaker?
Not one, I would say. Probably a number of filmmakers, and the majority of them, you know, you've probably heard this story before a million times from a million different filmmakers, you know. I kind of grew up in a working class background, and the arts wasn't really something that was pushed my way, but it was certainly, you know, through growing up watching all the Hammer horror films and all the British films in the 70s, which kind of piqued my interest, I think, in the visual side of things, when I was in my teenage years. And then it was just something what I continued to be interested in. To be honest, I never thought, you know, it never even entered my head that filmmaking was something I could actually do. And because my parents never really pushed my education, really. I suppose I was involved in sport. Specifically, I was an amateur boxer for 10 years. My dad's a boxing trainer in Middlesbrough, in the northeast of England. So kind of, that took over the majority of my life. My education was kind of pushed back to one. This sounds like I'm going off on a tangent here, but we'll come back to your question, Todd.
Okay.
I was kind of pushed off from my education and anything, which they felt was important, developing interests as an older person, because I was so heavily involved in boxing. But throughout growing up, I did have a real interest in music and in film in particular. And as I say, neither of them areas was something I ever felt, I could do. I never even questioned it, to be honest, because it was not, as I say, my parents didn't really push me on an education side and say to me, what is it you want to do when you're older? I was kind of just heavily involved in the sport. So it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s and I started getting into a lot of European horror through the Redemption label, a British film distribution label, which released a lot of the 60s, 70s films by European filmmakers such as Jean Rollin and Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento. So I think it was kind of there I was kind of older, really, in my early to mid-20s when I really saw things which really made me click and think, wow, these are just so different, these films. They're not what you're used to seeing.
Right.
And I think that was where my interest started. And it kind of made me think that, art or filmmaking specifically doesn't have to be what you see coming out of Hollywood at the time or out of the British studios at the time. It can be so much more and it can be so different. So going back to the point of the initial question, I suppose the majority, the filmmakers, what inspired me were the Italian filmmakers such as Argento and Fulci, and the French filmmakers as Jean Rollin, Spain's Jess Franco. Them kind of filmmakers really inspired me, I suppose, to start and dabble with filmmaking.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. There's some good ones there that you mentioned. So now, being that I'm asking this of the horror fans, and I may not ask it of the others, but if you have to pick, what would you say is your favorite zombie film?
It's a difficult question. Probably two of my top favorite 3 films ever. 2 of them are zombie movies, and that's obviously Romero's Dawn of the Dead and Fulci's Zombie Flesh Eaters. So I kind of rotate on which is my favorite one out of the 2. So one of them, I suppose. I mean, they're both iconic films.
Right. No, and I think it's no coincidence that myself and my first interview that I did with Jonathan Zarin and now we've all picked Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a
there's so many things about it that are just it's an iconic film. It really is, and I think I always see people bringing up different ones, and I think, well, everybody has their own opinion. I always respect and appreciate everybody's opinion. I just think that for most probably filmmakers that are into horror, they can't deny that Dawn of the Dead is definitely, on the Mount Rushmore of zombie films anyway.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the film's just got so much more to it than what you initially see. It's on many different levels, politically, culturally. It's just got so much more within it, which talks about certainly America at the time it was made, but your country, but also the world, I suppose. And I mean, it's been spoken about many times before regarding the film, so I won't go on about it. But I think that's the reason why, because it's got so many different levels in a subtext kind of way.
Yeah, it kind of transcends just that standard entertainment factor.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And I suppose, in a funny way, that kind of also reflects in my own filmmaking. Is what I try to do is not just make it entertainment. Not that my films are particularly entertaining, but I kind of, in the same way, want to make them deeper,
Right.
So people can kind of try to, well, hopefully get more out of them than just something which is throwaway.
Yep. Well, let's see. And last one, just, is there any actor or actress that, when they come out with a film, regardless of what it is or what it's about, that you just feel like, okay, I got to see this because, I'm just so impressed with their work overall?
There's been a number over the years, to be honest. Jake Gyllenhaal, or excuse me if I've said his surname wrong, because everybody pronounces it differently.
I know, everybody pronounces everything different anyway.
Yeah, well, I was also a massive fan of Winona Ryder as well, when she was in at peak as an actress.
Yeah, those are definitely good ones. For Jake, I really, really enjoyed Donnie Darko.
Yeah, fantastic film once again. But like you said, pretty much every film the guy's been in he just comes at it, so different. He's not one of these actors who you kind of see him like a bit like Nicolas Cage in a way. You watch a film with Nicolas Cage in, and his character is Nicolas Cage, but with actors like Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he's so different in every film he sees. He is involved in. I think he takes on his characters so differently, and he's a wonderful artist and a wonderful performer.
Yeah, he definitely is. So now tell me, what are you? I know that obviously this virus has shut down a lot of things for people, probably what they've been working on, but is there anything that you're currently working on, that you're planning to be working on, or?
Yes. In fact, we've already shot it. We shot it in January of this year, so luckily before the COVID-19 kicked in. We shot a trailer for my debut feature film called The Invoked, which is currently in post-production. So the idea with it is to use it to try and get interest in raising some money to actually shoot the feature itself. There was no way we could afford to shoot the feature, even though it would be pretty low budget.
Right.
But, I think as a filmmaker, you get to a certain level and, it's pointless just going out. I mean, yeah, I could shoot a feature with no money, but I just can't see the point in doing that. It's a lot of hard work making a feature film, as you know, because I know you've been involved in features yourself. So I think I wanted it to be to a level where we could actually gain some real interest in raising, a half decent budget in order to shoot it.
Right.
So as I said, that's currently in post at the minute. Hopefully it'll be finished in the next few months with any luck.
Well, definitely. Let us know when you release that trailer, and I'll post that up on our page too, so people can take a look. I know exactly. I understand what you mean. It's when we made our first feature, I think we spent very little money. Our second feature was probably at least almost 3 times what we spent on the first one. But as you keep going on, and based on the subject matter and locations and everything else, you can't get to a point, like you said, you can't just expect to make it for nothing anymore, because talented people also need to work and need to make money. And if you want good talent with you and people who are good at what they do, you end up where you've got to be able to pay them.
Of course, yeah. No, I completely agree. It's a difficult thing to do. I mean, it's great that technology is affordable now,
Right.
and anybody can basically pick up a camera and go out there and shoot a film. But still, as you've just mentioned, you know, I think you need people at a certain level, crew and cast as well. When you're casting, to be able to reach a kind of a half decent level if you want your film to actually move further.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. I mean, the work, half of the work, shooting a film is only half of the job. You know, it's actually distributing it and making something of it, which I find is the most difficult part.
Oh, it definitely is, and you know, it's also difficult to find, you know, find that right distribution partner for you because there's so many factors, and you know, I'm not going to get into this too much now, but I mean, for Kevin and I, that's why we started this distribution company because, you know, with the exception of a couple of people, our distribution experience has not been really great, and there's been a lot of issues that have come up that we were hoping we could try to do better. And you know, we're really still in our infancy here. We've been going for over a year, and our catalog is getting bigger. But you know, we're still learning and we're still figuring things out as we go. And we're just glad that over these, you know, last year or so, we've been able to kind of really give short films more of an outlet for being able to get out there and, you know, for people to see. We talked last week with Jonathan, and you know, he mentioned too that most people need to realize probably that when you make a short film, you're not making it to make a whole lot of money, but you're making it to get yourself exposure, which will hopefully lead to other things.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then, you know, there's a lot of talented filmmakers around the world, and there's a lot of people trying to do the same thing. So, you know, what you guys are doing is wonderful. And it's not getting any easier, you know, not even just in the arts these days. We know the world's in a bit of a mess at the minute.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one. It's a real difficult one. But, you know, I think as people, we just have to stay true to ourselves and continue to do what we believe is the right thing to do. And hopefully, you know, we'll get there. Hopefully when this pandemic quietens down and we get this over with, then hopefully we can turn back to a bit of normality. And it would be nice also to get some decent leaders leading our countries also.
I would agree with that as well. That's a whole nother interview probably in itself, but
It is.
But I'll tell you what, Dave, I really appreciate you coming out today and talking to us, and I can't wait to see that trailer. And definitely, if there's anything that we can do to help you guys out, please, you know, always please reach out, let me know. And, you know, again, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us today.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's a real pleasure. And to finally say hello to you, Todd. Thank you very much for everything you've done for Dystopia Street in the past, you and Kevin. We appreciate that, getting it out there. And yeah, of course, when the trailer's finished, which, as I say, hopefully should be within the next few months, I'll give you a shout, and you can see it and go from there, I suppose.
That sounds good. And then when you maybe when you guys get ready for production, if I've still managed to keep doing these, I will have you back on so you guys can talk more about the film.
Well, that'd be excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, Dave. Well, thank you again for your time, and we will talk soon.
Okie doke, mate. No problem. You take care. And yeah, it'd be nice to speak soon again at some point.